Welcome, everyone. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Granoff. I am so excited to be here. I am both a marketer and a magician. And today we're going to be talking about some big ideas. But before we start, I just want to make sure that everybody, since we might be talking about big ideas, does anyone need a pencil? No one needs a pencil?
Why not? Yes.
I might have one.
I do have a pen.
How about this? That's not a pencil. That's not a pencil. Now that's a pencil. If anybody has a sharpener for this, you can have it. Just thought we'd get off to a fun little start. Anyway, thank you so much for having me here today at the 7X Experience Summit. I want to start off by saying that I don't think that I have seen in 100 ad campaigns, I have rarely seen a big idea. Now, as shocking as that may sound, I didn't say it. This guy said it. This is David Ogilvy. He is the father, considered the father of modern advertising. And this is a direct quote from his book, Confessions of an Ad Man, that was written in 1963, so quite a while ago. This guy was groundbreaking in the field of advertising. He is the one who dominated the idea about having big, bold ideas in marketing. And I can tell you from my own experience working with Ogilvy that they are a singular force in the marketing community, and I've got some stories about that. So I think that his credo of what makes up great advertising is in 5 steps. First, did it make me gasp when I first saw it? Or did it elicit some sort of reaction, whether that's emotion like laughter or shock or sadness, whatever it needs to do? Did it make me emote? Second, did I wish I'd thought of it? How often do you see a great ad and go, wow, that's a great idea, I wish I'd thought of that one? Is it unique? And not unique for unique's sake, but unique in a relevant way. Does it connect with the strategy? Am I the right person who should be listening to that message? And finally, will it stand the test of time? Meaning, will it last for 30 years? Can I build off this and keep going? And we'll talk about some of that a little bit later, both with magic and with advertising. Well, I have to tell you, when I first saw this, I thought, same for magicians. When magicians design experiences, all of these things are relevant, each one of them. But I can also tell you that as a veteran of marketing for 20 years, the number of times that I've seen really good conceptual stuff is literally 1 in 100. I always wondered, why is that? Is it time? Is it budget? Is it talent? I don't think so. What other constraints of resources? Could be any number of things. And yet, we have difficulty sometimes, even when I'm paying a lot of money for advertising services, the number of times that as a purchaser of those services, I've been sort of disappointed is more than I would care to be. I can count on one hand. There have been times, but I can count on one hand what those experiences look like. So, what I can tell you though is that the ability to have unconventional ideas and to be thinking this way leads you to the possibility of actually what could become record-breaking work. So what are we here to do today? What's the trick of the day is to take these concepts that are sort of the secret ways that magicians craft experiences, craft magic, and apply them to how not just marketers, but really anybody who's solving a problem to create some sort of experience or solution goes about doing it, and to enhance the experiences we seek to create for our audiences. That's what this is all about. And if I can impart an addition to your already rich toolbox that I'm sure you all have, then hopefully I'll have done my job in a service to you. And that's really all I'm trying to do, is to give you a different perspective of how one might think about these things. So I will say that one of the experiences that you'll have today, sure, you're going to see some magic. And I want to make sure that everybody knows, and I want to say hello to everybody in the world who's watching this today, because we're streaming, and welcome everyone, that we're also recording this from many angles today. My friend Jay here is here to help as our videographer. And the reason for that we're going to take this from as many angles as we can get it, is because we want to study this new experience with you. We've created something that we hope will be more or less universal in the many applications, but we really want feedback and input. We're going to take this material in this recording and really study it to see what resonates, what doesn't, where can we shape this and continually master this thing. And that's what magicians do as well. They'll start with an idea. They're not done with it 5 years in. They're still working on it. And I can tell you that from real experience. So let me demonstrate this with just a simple concept. So this, I'm sure everybody is familiar with one of these. And this seemed to create sort of a obvious concept. If I hand you this scissor, and I take this rope, this was actually one of the best tricks I'd ever seen when I was a kid. And it came with sort of a crazy set of instructions. I wasn't quite sure how this thing actually worked, but it said, find the middle of the rope and grab a scissors. So the conclusion is sort of obvious, right? Like, what's supposed to happen? You're supposed to cut the rope. So you cut the rope, right there, right in the middle. Now we're committed. We have cut this rope, and now we need to figure out what to do with it. Just a little knotted up there. So I'm trying to remember the instructions, and the obvious thing in the instructions was you got to count the pieces. So you bring one piece up like this, and you count them. That's what they said. 1, 2, 3, and then you bring the fourth piece up like this, and I forgot the trick. I don't know. I forgot the trick. Let's try this again. Let's try this again. I'm going to bring this up like this. I'm going to try this one more time. I'll cut that again. Oh, but we're going to think about it differently this time. They have to be even on the bottom. Even?
Yes.
Well, those aren't even. And that's not even. That's not even. This isn't even either. Now we'll bring them up like this, and we'll go just like, I get lost every time. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. So, if we think a little bit differently, if we do this, and I cut this rope here, and here, how many pieces will I have?
3.
I'll have 3. I will have 3. And that is very clear. Now, if we think differently, these are all the same. Most magicians will bring the ropes up like this, but I want to challenge us to think just a little bit differently, to wind up with something more to work with. Maybe a small idea. or a medium idea, or a large idea. Now we have a little bit more to work with. Don't be shy. So let's see if we can get this back to where we can work together a little bit more. Clearly, if we gather these ropes up this way, this is what most magicians would do, but I don't want to do what most magicians do. I want to actually show you that there are 3 pieces here of different lengths. And I want to gather them up from the bottom, 1, 2, and 3. Now watch closely. And we're back. 1, 2, and 3. Don't be shy. So if we were to take these pieces of rope and we were to cheat and put them back together thusly, well, now we're back, kind of, to 1 piece of rope. Kinda? Sorta? Maybe? All right, watch. But in just a flash, these little ideas form something else altogether. And we're back. 2, a simple idea for you, and a big idea for you, and a medium idea for you. So that, my friends, is just a little bit of thinking about how you think you're going down one path and you wind up going in another. And I think that that's a marvelous metaphor for what so much of the thinking that we're about to get into today is all about. We can't leave out the critical thing that we'll talk about a little bit later, is about how we bring the emotional into this. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how magic actually works. And so this is something, Carolyn, that you're going to be very interested in. When I was first introduced to this topic, as I mentioned to some of you before, this book, Sleights of Mind, by Stephen Macknick and Susanna Conde, was written in 2010. 2 neuroscientists who wrote a book all about the cognition of magic. And one of the most standout quotes in here is this one: magic works because humans have a hardwired process of attention and awareness. Think about it. We all think like that. And it's hackable. Think about what we just did. By understanding how magicians hack our brains, we can better understand how the same cognitive tricks, and this is really important, are at work in advertising strategy, business negotiations, and all varieties of interpersonal relations. This is really what hooked me on this idea. I went a little bit further. There's another marvelous book that's written by magician Joshua Jay. Has anybody ever heard of him? He's a very well-known guy. He does a big show in New York. He's very, very good. And this quote is actually out of his book by master magician Juan Tamariz, who we'll come back to a little bit in this presentation. And Juan says that the shock and mystery of magic suspends any ability to analyze. Right? By the time you get to that end path, you're going, what? I can't, what? Some magic tricks, like other big experiences that we go to and experience, are so powerful that we give into the moment and we bathe in their intensity. We just think, oh, well, I give in. That was just incredible. And these are the moments that magicians are forever chasing. This is what we want to have happen. Creating them is enormously difficult. Even Ogilvy admitted that. I mean, David Ogilvy never said, you should do this every time, should be a winner, big, huge idea. He knew that it couldn't be done. But he also said, but you should also always strive for it. One of magic's great paradoxes is that our audience expects surprise. The challenge for us as magicians is to amaze you in ways you didn't expect, to make you think, I didn't see that, but then I should have. So I think that this is very tangible for marketers.
Do you prefer questions at the end or now?
If you wish.
Is it easier to trick somebody who expects a surprise or somebody who does not expect a surprise?
That's a great question. The answer is you have to be able to deal with both, obviously. When you go to a magic show, you're expecting to be surprised. So, we were talking about that earlier. So the quality of what you're seeing, the design of it needs to be so good that it's bulletproof. So part of what I talk about a lot is that if you're a magician and you're trying to make a living doing this, you can't be bad. You can't be mediocre because you won't have a career. But somehow in my field, in marketing, you get mediocre work all the time. You get to pay tons of money. So that's really the key point. And to your point, I think that this is very translatable to marketing. Almost the same quote. Some marketing campaigns or ads are so powerful that we give into the moment and bathe in their intensity. Think about a great ad, and you go, wow, that's just amazing. And these are the moments that marketers are forever chasing. Maybe not hard enough. But creating them is enormously difficult, which we just talked about. The challenge for us as marketers is to amaze our target audience in ways they didn't expect, to make them think, I didn't see that coming, but then again, I should have. So I think that the experiences are really, really parallel. They can be very powerful. And that's why I think that magicians have a lot to teach us when it comes to this whole idea of how we think about this. Now, in order for us to understand this whole process of how magicians think, and to go back to the sleight of mind analysis for a moment, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the concepts involved in creating magic. And in Sleights of Mind, there are several examples of tools that magicians use to create, whether they're illusions in front of you or large illusions on stage. So take a shiny object like this. All right? Now, this is a really nice coin too. This coin, this is a Morgan silver dollar from 1887. This coin came from my grandfather. It was his birth coin. He was born in 1887. And all of his grandchildren, 1892, and all of his grandchildren have one of these. It's really cool. Now, we'll put the coin right here, and I'm going to close my hand around it. Now, nothing has happened to it yet. It's still there, and it doesn't take much, just a second, and you just give it a little squeeze like this, and it goes. Now, if you reach this way, and you squeeze again, it comes back. It's very elusive. Pick it up here, tap it through your elbow, comes back there. This is my favorite part. You can grab it like this and just throw it right into the floor. And there it is. Now, where is it? Where is it? If you reach out this way, it comes back. And then, so do my glasses, which I usually forget. So what you've just seen is something called retention of vision. Retention of vision works with a shiny object. It works with a flash. Back in the day when we had flash bulbs or flash on cameras, do you remember what that like? When you got the flash, like the flash cube, what would you see? You'd see the square. You'd close your eyes and you'd see that image. That's what retention of vision does. Retention of vision takes advantage of the fact that your brain sees that shiny object there. It sees that moment when that thing goes away and comes back. It's that last retention that you have in your brain that convinces you that that object is really there, and it's not. Okay? So that's a really key concept, and it's used all the time. It's used for stuff like this that I'm showing you. It's used on stage for huge acts where you'd be surprised that just the use of light and sound creates this retention aspect in your mind, and you see what you see without realizing that a lot of times what you're seeing is not at all what's going on. Okay? Now another aspect to talk about works like this. This prop is about 50 years old. It was the first magic prop that I ever bought. And I used it in kid shows my entire kid show career. And it never failed to get a great response. Now it's a very simple device. It's made up of 3 pieces. There's a tube, like that. There's a box, like that. And there's a stand, so you can see that there's a space here. So it's not, there's no holes in our table. But watch, with just a simple, just like that. Here's what happens. That's fun. Now, what you've seen here is something called black art. Black art was invented by accident. Has anyone ever heard of it? 1875. It was a German actor and director whose name is, or was, Max Ausinger. Max was producing a very dramatic and eerie play, and there was a dungeon scene in the play, and he wanted it to be exceptionally eerie. So what he did was he lined the entire stage with black velvet, and the main character was to come out and do a dramatic soliloquy of some type, and the main character was a Moor. He was a man of dark complexion, and when he came out on the stage and started to speak, all anyone could see were the whites of his eyes and his teeth bouncing around on the stage. And Ausinger realized it, and the audience was like shocked. And Ausinger realized at that point that he had more than just a play he could do. He started to produce shows using this black art technique, and he spent the rest of his career touring the world doing various things with black art to amaze people. And this is something that's still in use today. But again, it's another way of just hacking our brains so that, you know, what you think you see, or the object here is that nothing's going on. And then the surprise of something coming from nothing is there. Okay? So that's another way. Now, a third way, and something that's very important to this whole formula, is something we call attention jacking. Okay? Attention jacking is otherwise known as misdirection. All right? And I wonder, would you mind helping me out just for a second?
Sure.
We're going to attempt to show you a trick. Well, why don't you come up?
Okay.
And I'm going to have you sit right here. And remind me again, your name
Brendan.
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 Thank you. And everybody give Brendan a warm welcome. Okay. Now, folks, we're going to do something for Brendan. But you're all going to see how it functions. You're going to see it happen. Don't say anything. Let Brendan find out for himself what's going on. And this trick was made famous by a master magician whose name was Tony Sleight. Has anyone ever heard of him? Tony was most popular in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. He was regarded as the magician's magician. So, Brendan, what I'm going to do is give you this tissue box, and I just want you to get comfortable. You can lean forward a little bit like this, so that you can see clearly, and I just want you to hold this, keep your hands on it, just like this.
Okay.
And so, just lift it up a little bit, right, and it's just gotta be at the right height, just like that. Now, turn yourself towards me a little bit so you can see. Good. And we're gonna start by taking a couple of tissues like this. I'm gonna roll them up in my hands this way, and I'm gonna just ask you, if I do this, where's the tissue? That's excellent. You did the right, give him a hand. That's great. That's very good. That is very observant. Now, I'm gonna put it right back here, and watch. We'll do it again. Now, you know why you didn't see it that time? Covering it.
Blocked it.
Yeah, well, you can't see it. So if you can't see it, then it can't, here, I think, here, what you wanna do is hold this way, hold this kind of toward you, like right up against your chest so it's out of the way. Now, don't look at them, don't look at them, look over here. Look.
Oh.
Yeah, put it back, we'll put it back right there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Put that back down this way. Look. All right, we're gonna supersize it. All right, Brendan, where's the ball?
What ball?
Not yet.
All right, we're gonna go like this. Now, if I cover the ball this way,
Yeah.
would you bet that it's still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is still there.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't make it disappear. Do you know why I can't make it disappear?
Why?
It's too big.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your help, I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Nice round of applause.
Thank you.
And he'll find out right now. what
Right,
was
right.
going on. But that is one of my all-time favorite bits. If it's done with good humor and with respect for the person you're doing it with, it's magic for you.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it's great.
And it's just great for you because you guys get to see what's going on here to create this, where his attention is going and what's happening as these paper balls are flying over his head. Yes?
Yeah.
It looks simple to us. Does it take a lot of practice for you to do it right?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Because what has to happen is that there's everything that I did with Brendan, the movement of the box, the touching of his shoulder, the drawing him forward, I have to be very aware of where his attention is and where I'm getting it to go before I can make that release happen. So yes, it takes a lot of time with different people to say, and like we're doing today. So yeah, it's one of the things I've played with since I was a kid. So it's really fun. But misdirection is another key element of this whole puzzle, so that when you take the tools, like the two that I described earlier, and misdirection, now you can see how we can start to have the threads of what we need to pull together an actual show, or an actual trick. There is another thing though, and that is that what we say is just as important, if not more so, than what we show. Let me show you what I mean by that. And I think we can probably discuss this. Actually, Carolyn, would you guys come up and just join me here? It might be easier. do this way, because I'm gonna need both of you at one time. And I'm gonna have you come right over here like this. And Carolyn, I'm gonna begin by asking you, or actually, tell me how to pronounce your name again.
Sharon.
Sharon?
Yes.
Thank you. And Carolyn. Sharon, does that look like a solid object to you?
Yes. Knife.
You know what that is?
I think it's pocket
A
knife.
pocket knife, otherwise known as?
Murder.
Well, some people call it a penknife. Why? Why would you call it a penknife? Well, back in the day, way back before the internet, when there were quill pens, they used to use a small pen like this to carve out the tip of the nib of the quill pen, and then it got its name, penknife. In fact, our second president, Thomas Jefferson, invented the penknife. So not only is this show magical, it's also educational. Now, when that knife disappears and it winds up in my pocket, what would most people say? That wasn't magic at all. It was just sleight of hand. You made that knife go up this sleeve, around your back, down this sleeve, and into your pocket, which is exactly what happened. But look, if I were to hold this knife this way, Sharon, and I were to take this in my hand, and you were to grab my wrist, just like that, and you can see it's there. Now, if the next time I open my hand, that knife is gone, why, that would be real magic, right? Really? Right, folks? That would be real magic.
Yes.
Say it with me. That would be real magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody can do that. Well, let's be honest about it. Nobody can do that. However, there is something called the intricate web of distraction. You know what that is? Let me show you. The intricate web of distraction looks like this. Look. Look. I got two knives. You just switch them like this. You switch them. There's two of them. That's the only way to do it. You've got one knife is hidden. One knife isn't. This is called palming. So when I hold my hand in a completely natural position, you just bring your hand over like this, you switch them out, and one switches to the other one. Palming. That's how that works. Now that you know the secret, if we take these two knives like this, and I put this knife over here, and I show you this knife over here, so this knife is which knife? White. This one must be?
Black.
Excuse me? That? No, this one is the white one, this one's the black one over here. And I think probably what's confusing you is that we have too many knives. So what we'll do next is, you just grab my wrist, and I'm gonna go back in here and get this other knife that we dropped before, and now we'll do it in reverse. So the white knife is here, meaning that the black knife is here, right? So which is here?
Black, white.
So the black knife is over here actually. But do you remember what I said about the intricate web of distraction? Ah. So if the black knife is here, which one is in my pocket?
White.
Pardon?
White.
No, the black knife is here, the white one's over here, see? And we'll move on. But thank you guys very much for your time and attention. So what did you notice about the way that the language of what was being done was affecting the magic and the outcome? Any ideas as to how that
Really
shaped up?
priming expectation, like what they should expect to see, and knowing you had something different.
Absolutely. The end is a complete surprise because we've been doing stuff with knives that are changing places and colors and everything else but vanishing and reappearing. The notion of the vanish is set up in the beginning, and the impossibility of the vanish is set up in the beginning. We plant that thought in your mind with you holding my wrist, so that by the time we get through all that craziness, of going back and forth, which in and of itself was a lot of fun. By the time we come back to that same image, all you can think of is, well, that knife is in his hand. And it's going to be impossible to do anything with it until that happens. And so I've always felt that that's, for me, one of the most fascinating tricks that I do because of that very thing. The trick in and of itself is not all that hard, but the psychology behind it is, to me, what makes the experience very surprising for people. So I think there's quite a lot to be said for that. And does anyone have any questions at this point about anything that we've shared?
Are you going to show us how you?
Am I going to show you?
Do it to learn the trick.
Actually,
No.
if you would show that trick and you would just say that the bare minimum, what's the effect? Is it a huge difference in your opinion?
That's a great question that we're actually going to talk about a little bit, because it's the difference between the first time I ever saw that trick, I was 10, and a relative of mine bought it for me as a gift, and it was called the color changing knives, and that's what they did. You show the knife, it changes color, it changes color again. You do it in various ways, but that's the whole trick. And that's great for a kid who's learning magic. That's like your son. That's fantastic. It's great, but over time, you get to the point where you're saying, how can we make this a little bit more amazing? Or how can we connect with people at a different level? How do we get them involved with this in a way that isn't just watching something go back and forth, which frankly also gives people the time to think about, wait a minute, what's going on there? So, to answer your question, you can just show a trick. We'll talk in a moment about, if we go back to the coin trick, for example, sometimes it's very appropriate just to go through that whole bit that I did there with the coin, and it's fine. It's a nice introduction, people find it fun, but it could be a whole different experience, and we're going to talk about how magicians think about doing that in a couple minutes. So, did I answer your question?
Right. I mean, and we don't need to go there, but it just reminded me of your original kind of criticism that most marketing ads are kind of boring. I mean, you could say boring, but I find them boring. And that one might be your trick without all the stuff around it. And to make something special, it just requires the proper priming and all those things.
You're absolutely right. And that's why all of these elements, especially the experiential side of it, the words, the story, the why are we doing this aspect of it, as much as we can bring that out for people, the more meaningful or the more connection the experience is going to have. So rather than just fooling you, we're bringing you to a different place. We're bringing you to a place of wonder, and wow, that just was, I mean, I've seen great magicians bring people to tears or hysterical laughter, which is most of the time. But they have this talent for molding and crafting all these tools so that the story they tell and the context that they put it in is everything. So it's a great, great question, and this is the real challenge of what we're trying to do today. We're trying to express how this way of thinking can help us move forward. So the question is, how do magicians create this overall experience so that it looks like magic? How? But before we get there, the questions that come up about creating a magic trick. So as a magician, people will often ask me things like, how do I make my watch disappear? What am I thinking? Can you make this apple float? Can you make my little brother go away? That's a real one. But for marketers, the question is a little bit different. And if you look at some really great examples of advertising that's in the recent day, you can see what can be accomplished. So here's a marketing challenge. Marketing challenge: how does a run-of-the-mill, pretty much, insurance company become a dominant auto insurance brand in a proverbial sea of dullness. Sea of sameness against gigantic competition. Enter Geico. In 2010, the gecko was introduced, hugely clever, and the campaigns were introduced with humor, but the value proposition and the reason why we're watching the ad is always what we end with. 15 minutes to save you 15% or more on car insurance. It so happens that they have created all of this magic, all of this humor, and people love these ads. Because Whedon and Kennedy, who created them, figured out a way through insights and research and testing and of all types, in-person, virtual, what have you, to figure out what would resonate with people, what would they find amusing, but also not to lose the message of 15 minutes saves 15% or more in car insurance. This campaign has been running successfully since 2010, and it continues to evolve today. I guarantee you that the people who think about creating this advertising go beyond the pale. They don't stop at the obvious, like so many do. You can tell the ones that do. Look at any bank ad. Every bank ad I see, the same. Even car ads, they're all the same. You could take the name off the car, you could take the name off the ad and you wouldn't know who the advertiser was.
So this is what kind of is for me the big question is, does it work for a big crowd or a small crowd? There's another commercial that goes in the ones with the yellow ostrich, stuff.
Liberty Mutual.
Yeah, Liberty Mutual. And they have I thought the ostrich was stupid, and then later they became funny when they brought in the second guy, and each time I start laughing, and my wife looks at me and says, "You've seen it now for 10 times." And next time I'm going to laugh again. So it doesn't always work with everybody, and it's really not that funny, but I react to it. So how do you, it works for some people. Why does that work for so many? And not just for some people, because it is a bit weird.
Because the research that's been done guides them in terms of its appeal across a broad range of people. When they test these ads, they're putting a huge array of people in a room to view them. And they're getting reaction from every age group, all genders, all persuasions, everything. And they've got a very good sense when they show that ad, how many people that's going to appeal to versus those that it won't. And ads like Liberty Mutual, I don't personally, this is just me, I don't think they're as well done as these.
No, I said I laugh, but the rest of the family doesn't. Yeah.
So it's trial and error too. So you've got to get out and test this stuff, and you see the ones that keep repeating as the ones that are working. I've seen Geico ads that you'll see once or twice and then never again. And then you'll see series like the one with the teacher who's teaching people my age not to be their parents. I love that ad. It's hysterical because it connects with my generation, which is exactly where it's targeted.
So why are there so many? They're not just dull; they're just kind of mind-blowing dull ads.
Well, this is my point. You're helping me out here. This is my point. This is my point as to why that is, in my opinion, is that folks who are doing these campaigns and assigned to these campaigns aren't bringing their A game all the time to the work, the upfront work, and then the actual creative work that needs to go into them to create a magical outcome. We'll talk about this a little bit more because I've got some anecdotal stuff to share. This is one example. Another example is one that everybody knows. In the late 1980s, this iconic shoe brand was losing to its major competitor. It had sales of not even $1 billion before it introduced this campaign. And from 88 to 98, they increased their share of the American domestic sports shoe business from 18% to 43% with Just Do It. And Just Do It obviously is still running. It's inspirational. No matter what they do with it, people respond to it. and people use it as their own personal, I came in this morning and I just said, just do it, right? It's iconic, and the effect that it had on that business it goes without saying. Third example, which is actually one of my favorites, happened in 2004. This was a 70-year-old soap brand, and it challenged the whole beauty industry, turned it on its head, which that industry put out incredibly high standards for beauty, especially with women, and this was a challenge. So this ad featured diverse women of all types, and talked about beauty from the inside out. Everybody's beautiful. And the campaign was the Let's Change Beauty from Dove, Real Beauty. This campaign is also still evolving. And imagine now, so this is something that speaks to not just women, but also to men. Because the support that Dove brand got for standing behind women in this way organically brought them enormous growth in the market. And it's just another example of how understanding the insights around the topic you're advertising, what's important to people, what matters, why are they even listening to you, and then trying to come up with messaging that resonates to that group, that gives them all the emotional insight and motivation that you want them to have to join you. What could be better? And the other part of the brand journey, of course, is that they have to live that brand. They can't just say it. They have to stand behind it, and they do. And this one has really stood the test of time. And all of these ads, in my opinion, fulfill Ogilvy's 5 steps. I think they all make us go, or some type of emotional reaction. If it's motivation, it could be the sports piece. They're all unique in their own beautiful way. They're all relevant, they're on strategy, and they stand the test of time. I used to work for a guy who, ironically, came out of the Ogilvy shop. And I'll tell you more about him in a moment. But he was a huge proponent, and he ran a small agency, did not run a big shop. But his whole mindset was what we're talking about today. And I can tell you that we would talk about the fact that here's what we're going to do. He would tell a client, we're going to come in and ask you and your CEO and your salespeople a whole bunch of pointed questions. We're going to find out why people buy from you. We're going to go to your clients. We're going to say, hey, there's a lot of choices out there. This was a high-tech agency, by the way. A lot of choices out there to buy your software, to buy your machine, or whatever it is you've got. Why these guys? So he would actually do an exhaustive interview process around that, and he kind of short-circuited the big agency process for account management by making that research process smaller. So he didn't go out and do, online research. He didn't have the budget for that, but he did have the time to get on the phone, talk to these CEOs, talk to these salespeople, talk to a dozen customers. And then he said, we're going to sit down as a creative team, and I watched them do this, and we're going to come up with literally hundreds of ideas, whatever it takes to get beyond the obvious. And they would. They would sit in a room, and you'd walk in and you'd see balled up papers thrown over their heads because they were just trying to get beyond what's everybody going to do anyway. And then they would come up with the 1, the 3, or the 8 ideas that they could bring into a client that they knew would fulfill those categories, any one of which they could stand behind. And he said, his quotable thing that I always took away from this was, you need to stand out, you need to be bold, you need to take risks, because playing it safe is risky business. And I loved that. And it's true. And, you know, we're taking some risks today. I'm going to take some more of them. I hope you'll indulge me. But any questions on this? On sort of, are you seeing where this linkage is starting to shape up?
Seems like that's why there's lots of bad ads too. Risk.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's an intrinsic fear of not taking risks.
And there's also the other thing is too many decision makers, and you know, and in the end, the one that is the least offensive
Right.
idea will make it through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
By committee.
Mhm.
And so there's an enormous, I mean, he would get to the point where, we're gonna get into this, it's sort of like, well, how do they create those ads? Now we're back to the creation of these, and I'm gonna step back for a moment and talk about, you know, how we think about creating magic. So let's go back to the coin trick. And this takes us back to a point that you made earlier, which was, do you ever just show the trick and that's it? Yeah, sometimes. I mean, if you're in a group and people, show me something quick. You go, okay. And that can be fun. But we need to think differently. We need to think about, well, what do I want this coin to do? Why am I even doing this trick? Today I was doing it to demonstrate a concept. I would rarely show it that way. So why are we here? What's the effect I'm trying to create? Is it clear? Why am I going to show it? What's the meaning of it? What could I do with this? If it's going to disappear, then where's it going to go? If it disappears and goes to my pocket, maybe that's not so impressive. Maybe they're thinking about dozens of ways that could happen. Maybe it could go to an impossible place, like under that, you know, under your chair or something. But what if it wasn't a ring? What if it wasn't a coin? What if it was a ring? How about if I borrow the ring? What does that do? It creates some connection. Well, wait, but what if I borrow more than one ring? And what if I don't make it disappear? What if I make it do something completely different? By the way, is anybody wearing a ring that I might borrow?
You can have an earring.
No rings? No, I need a
I
ring.
have one. Yeah.
You have one?
Yeah.
All right. Nobody else has a ring? Do you have a ring, Jay? I'll borrow it.
This is a $10 ring, so.
That's a $10 ring.
So be careful.
All right, now listen.
I've got it more.
Does
I've
this
got-
ring, is there a story behind this ring?
You know, the ring that I had tattooed her, initial on my finger, so that was the real ring.
Wow.
But the, the one I had gotten for our wedding didn't fit, and I didn't have enough time to get another one. So I walked down Newberry Street, and some lady on the street was selling rings, and that one fit.
Wow, okay. See, that's a good story.
Yeah.
That's a good story. Jay, what about you?
This is my wedding ring.
This is your wedding ring.
Yeah.
I can tell by Jay's tone of voice that he's not entirely
Yeah, don't-
You are the only person that I would give this to.
Okay, and Jay, the story behind this beautiful wedding ring, does anybody else have a ring? No? Okay. Then I will use, and I'm gonna let you examine this. See, we're always prepared. This is my wedding ring. And the story behind that ring is that my wife and I wanted something unique. And this ring came from a fellow in Boston that my parents knew for a very long time. And he actually made this ring custom for us. And I've now worn it for 39 years. All right. So are you satisfied? Most of the time I'm successful at collecting a ring. So we've got 3 rings here. And I'm going to take a bit of a risk. Hope this worked. Hope it happens.
Right?
See my ring there?
Yes.
Is it hooked to the other two? Okay? That's your ring there?
That's awesome.
Alright, that's your ring there? Alright, let me just, put that away. Yeah, interesting. And they're really linked there, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they're on there. Jay, that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
And there's no other like trick ring.
Just
There's-
to know, I know Michael as a marketing professional. I don't know him as a magician. I better get my ring back.
Now you're sweating.
And Brandon, is
I
that
like
your
that
ring
one.
hooked to the other one?
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? So there we have it. So all these rings, now we have a problem. Because we have to figure out a way.
You have to figure out a way.
The pressure's on me. That's
Way,
one.
way easier than I thought.
Is this yours?
Let's see here. I need to be able to see this. This is challenging to. Okay. Any luck? There you have it. That's it.
Wow.
Was that a moment?
That was a moment.
Take the ring of your choice. Jay, your ring.
Awesome.
So the reason that I share that is that taking risks is important. And I will tell you that that is the first time I performed that trick for a live audience.
Okay.
Oh. Love it.
And it was great fun. It's always been a favorite of mine. But my point is that the structure, what I've just taken you through, was a miniature version of something called lateral thinking. If you think magicians just read books about magic, you'd be wrong. The best magicians are quite worldly. They are extraordinarily curious. We want to know about everything. We want to know about science and technology, human behavior, social trends, networks, humor, everything you see here. And so we read a lot of disparate stuff to educate ourselves as to what's going on in the world, what the prevailing feeling. I mean, if I'm going to do a magic show in Ireland, it's not going to be the same magic show that I'm going to do here in the US, right? So I need to be aware. I need to be informed. And so the magicians that I know that are real solid professionals are some of the most worldly people I know. There's one extraordinarily funny and talented magician out of Toronto. Her name is Carissa Hendricks. And she has a character by the name of Lucy Darling, who is absolutely hysterical. Look her up. But the reason she's so hysterical, she can banter with people off the cuff and be absolutely amazingly connected because she just has that vibe as to who everybody is that she's speaking with. Because she's so well read. She's brilliant. So this is a big deal. And so magicians need to do a few things at once to create miracles. They need to be curious. They need to have this worldly understanding. They need to understand insights about their audience. Who, what, why, where, when, what motivates. They need empathy. I must understand how I can make you feel and feel it in return if we're going to create an experience. And then the last one is this power of lateral thinking. What is that? Lateral thinking was actually something that's fairly recently coined by a psychologist named Edward de Bono in 1967. I know there's a lot of words here. I'm breaking all the rules of PowerPoint. But lateral thinking is a way of thinking about reaching a solution that encourages you to think about as many disparate ideas as you possibly can. Things that are completely unrelated to one another. So it uses reasoning that is not obvious. It doesn't follow a linear path, so that you start at A and wind up at B, C, and D. You start at A, you go to Z, you go to 1, you go to Roman numeral 2, you mix and match. And what ends up happening as a result of mixing and matching and just shooting everything you can, it's like throwing stuff against the wall, what happens? Happy accidents happen. Everybody who's been through a creative process knows this. Some of the best ideas come from, I didn't know that thinking about the color red and name anything, that tree outside could spark an idea that would be completely unique to what it is we're trying to do. So you get this sort of natural or organic creation of other ideas that come from this process. So you're winding your way through this whole thing, and you're breaking away from traditional norms. You're not doing what's conventional. And that is the essence of what magicians do when they're thinking about creating magic. They're trying to take pieces from all different angles, points of view, shapes, sizes. What are we going to do? The whole idea about taking you from vanishing a coin to linking 3 people's rings together, in my mind, was a perfect way of expressing how we can ideate and just let your head go. When the magician that I mentioned earlier, Joshua Jay, thinks about creating magic, he doesn't start with what the trick is or how it's done. He just starts free associating. And in his words, he uses his words and physicality to imagine what's possible. What if I could, or what if I could do that? And if I did that, what if I could do that? Well, if that happened, then that person might react that way. Well, what if I did this? So in much the same way, this is how I'm expressing, saying, well, we could make the coin vanish, but why don't we make a ring vanish? Ooh, but if we make the ring vanish, how about if we use 3 rings? What if they didn't vanish?
Yeah.
What if they linked?
Right?
Whoa, that would be amazing. So that was why I've taken you through this and sort of used that as an example and that's a wonderfully constructed magic trick. And it follows the rules of what I'm about to show you, because any magic trick that uses this methodology, this is embodied by a magician. I'm going to explain this. I know it looks confusing, but the magician that I mentioned earlier, Juan Tamariz. Juan Tamariz is a master magician. He's a Spanish magician. He is a magician's magician. He wrote a book. Don't they all?
Yeah.
He wrote a book in 2014 called The Magic Way. Now, I think this is a wonderful little infographic which tries to take the steps that he takes you through, but you can see the disparate way in which he's thinking along the way. And rather than explain each step, what we will do is to say, in his methodology, he needs to understand what is the effect. You asked this question earlier. What's the trick? What is the effect in steps? You'll notice that in all of the things I demonstrated today, they happen in stages. It happens once, it happens again, it might happen a 3rd time. Study all of the general solutions, I mean all of them. What is every possible way this could be done? Hundreds of ways that could be done. Study the particular solutions, and this is right out of the previous example of disparate thinking. Study the particular solutions within voluntary, that pop out of an involuntary process. When you think of all these solutions, you invariably think of, oh, well, if it can do this way and this way, I can also do it this way. You didn't know that before you started. So there's this accidental set of solutions. You choose the real solution. You choose what you're ultimately going to end with. That's going to be the mind-blowing part of it. You also choose false solutions. False solutions are introducing all of the ways that the audience is thinking could be done that you shut down with the next demonstration. So, with the coin, for example, when you think it's in my hand, I reach this way and I show you my empty hand. That's a good example of that. You choose the solution effect, which is that in the moment, what is the actual solution I'm going to use to create the final effect? What do I want to happen? When do you stop a particular solution? In other words, how many repetitions am I going to do? I've seen guys come up with, 10 steps of a trick, and it's like, all right, it's a little too much. And then finally, you repeat the effect with a change of solution, which is what I just described. So all of that works together to bring you to what he calls a magic rainbow at the very end. So, if this can be true for magicians, marketers have to have a roadmap. Marketers will say, yeah, but how do I use it? And actually anybody can use this. So let me do this. Before we get to this, I want to introduce something before we get into this last piece. There's something interesting that I want to do. Hold that thought. And I want to hand out some stuff. So I have a box.
Treasure?
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
My wife
finishing
is very unhappy. I have a cover and I have a cube.
Thank
Hi, what is your name, by the way?
Tammy.
Tammy, nice to meet you.
I'm
I
sorry.
have
was late.
I have a pencil
Alright.
and I have a crayon box with a crayon in it. I've got a toothbrush. Jay, you can take a look at the toothbrush.
Old one?
I know, right? You?
And of what magician, some magicians always have a card box, so we'll leave the card box there. Now, we were talking about kids' magic sets before. So feel free to just take a look at those objects. Take a look at the boxes and everything else. Can you guys just get together for a minute and see if you can figure out what could you possibly do magically with that box, that cube, and that cover?
Oh,
And while they're talking about that,
Right?
we'll take a look at these objects,
Exactly.
because this is how I make friends. I just give out disparate objects. And I say,
Exactly.
You
Take a look at it.
put in, but you
You palm it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
you
See?
gotta put it in.
Yes, right?
What was the request? What are we trying to
We were just looking
Yeah,
at
are
it,
you
that's
changing
fine.
color?
I just wanted everybody to get a chance to handle what we're gonna be using in a moment.
Put it in here now, right?
Okay, I've got-
Drop it.
I'm gonna give you 30 seconds more.
Yeah, and you hear the sound of dropping on the floor.
Can you figure out any ways that you might actually do magic with those objects?
It's the blue one, and if you get the
Yeah, exactly,
Very
exactly.
blue one.
Yeah, because if you use
I think it's great.
have that look at it.
Conceptually, I love that idea.
So that's what you can
Um,
think of. So that's the solution we're going to stop. And then.
But that's the obvious one, right?
Yeah,
Time's up.
yeah.
That's the obvious one, you should go for it.
Time's up. Okay, so guys, what did you come up with?
These could be broken.
Several.
We come up with the obvious ones that we're going to stop. We haven't got to the next step.
Okay, what is the trick you think you're going to do?
The color changing one?
Change the color, it goes in, or make this disappear from
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
box.
Yeah, yeah, one thing is you pretend you put it in like that, but in reality you distract and put it in maybe like that, different color.
Yeah.
The other one was that, you put it on it, and then you close
So
it.
That's
Very interesting
Very
idea.
clever, huh?
Yeah. Or if it, and the cube looks very solid too, but I don't know if there's a trick to it where you can do it so you pull out a different cube so you can actually look through it, because those colors look like they could be holes, so you can create something else.
It's a very interesting idea. It really is. Do you want to see what the actual trick looks like?
Sure.
Yes.
Now remember, this is in a kid's magic set.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have an empty box, and I have a cube. Now, Carolyn, your job is to select a color and leave it face up in the box and cover the box. and I won't look. And when you're
Can
done,
she show everybody else?
she can show everybody else which color is facing forward. And when you're done,
Okay.
tell everyone.
Okay.
You all done?
Yep.
It's covered, so I can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I, in all of my childlike worldliness, am going to try and discern. I'm going to hide this behind my back so that I can't see it. And the only thing I'm going to do is put it up to my head like this. And I'm going to try and decide what color you've chosen. I think I have it. I think you chose very dark color. I think you chose the color black. Ta-da!
Yay!
So which couldn't be easier for a kid, right?
Yep.
So when it's behind my back, I just switch the cover, put it up to my head like this, and I
Oh,
look
brilliant.
at it, and I put it back, and I've done my first,
See,
my first mental.
I thought the box was actually see-through, so when you were looking into your eye, you were like, all right, so I see yellow and blue make green, so it must be black.
So it's really, it's a clever little thing, right? But what's cool is that you guys were thinking about something completely different. How do we make the cube disappear? How do we make it change color? What else could we do? Could it float? I mean, it could be any number of things. There's possibilities of actually, dumping this and putting it on the table to make the cube disappear.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of possibilities. And in a broader workshop, I plan to do more of this with people. Did you guys figure out anything that might happen with those? All right, we'll come back to that in a second. Nothing.
Just brushing his teeth.
Exactly. Look, all the cavities are gone.
We will come back to that in a moment. All right. So let's get back. So what I wanted to do in that case was just to open your mind up a little bit, to see that this sort of, you thought of all kinds of possibilities. You guys were sort of, I heard you sort of knocking around some stuff. What could we do with this? It's just a different way of introducing you to the way in which we might think about, what can we do with this? I mean, if I gave you a twig, some yarn, and a baseball bat, what could I do? So, we want to make this process, this magic way, relatable for marketers. So, this becomes like a tapestry of everything that we've been talking about. The magic way is on the left, which is what I just described to you, with the illustration here. Standard marketing process is encircling it. And behind it is all of the insight that you can possibly bring to the endeavor. So whatever that is, research, primary, secondary, in-person, online, what have you. And a marketer needs to understand the product and service they're selling. What are the objectives? Specifically, what are the objectives? We need to understand its value. The value proposition is the most important thing I have. It's the reason for the trick. It's the reason for the ad. If I can't express the value, I don't have an ad. 15 minutes to save 15% or more in car insurance. That's the value proposition. Dove Real Beauty, value proposition. Determine the value is just a key element. Find the competitive differentiation. How can we position ourselves differently? What's the space that we can live in that no one else is living in? That takes research. That you need to understand. What do we have that we can prove is a unique set of skills that fulfill that value proposition that perhaps nobody else has? We need to meet the customer's burden of proof with that value proposition. We need to have all those reasons to back it up. In marketing context, we call them reasons to believe. In magic, we use the same thing. We give you all those false solutions, reasons to believe something else, something that we want you to think before we show you the real surprise. We then establish a brand platform. We establish the way we're going to present ourselves, the way we express our message to you, the same way that a magician expresses the effect of magic to you. Then we're going to, through all this process, we're going to spin up as many possible ideas in establishing that brand platform positioning to arrive at that point. We want to come up with hundreds, possibly, of ideas. We do not want to stop thinking. And that's my challenge to everybody, is not to stop thinking. Always challenge the status quo. It's never good enough. You can't stop and say, well, it's good enough. Really? Do we want to settle for that? I know my clients would not settle for that when I was in the agency business, and we didn't settle for it, but somehow it sort of became a mundane thing. You have to put the product as hero, and with all of that, kind of using this magic way of thinking as your motivation, we can arrive at the same place, positively, best foot forward, groundbreaking type of advertising, if you devote the time, attention, and everything that it deserves to it.
Yes.
So that's for all the marketers in the room who need a template. And that's how you arrive at stuff like this. In a word. So, I want to end our discussion with a little bit of a demonstration of how this can work. And I'm going to take these objects back. You know what? There's another, this has just been sitting on the table. Just pass this around. This is just my drink for the day. We'll use this as well. Oh, the card box, thank you. I'll come back for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Supercharged
this,
Make the water
and we
disappear.
got the pencil, thank you.
Here, can I get this?
Everyone's taking a good look at that. And whatever we're gonna do with that. Sure, yeah, we'll, oh, there's one other thing that I forgot. And actually, there's a whole bunch of them over there. But for the moment, we're just going to use, I forgot to pull out the gift. Tim, would you come up?
I would love to.
This is a gift for you. And when everybody leaves today, there's a gift for everybody off by the blackboard over there. And I'm gonna let you have this for the moment.
Thank you.
And I just want you to hold on to that. And as we figure out some thing that we can do, oh, the crayon. I'm gonna take the crayon out before. Okay. So here we have a bunch of objects, and so this demonstrates visually sort of what we were chatting about before, which is like, how would you take these disparate objects and do something with them that has maybe never been done before? How would I even start to think about that? How do I start thinking about that? I'm not sure, but we'll give it a try. So while I'm doing this, would you simply just take the ribbon off of that scroll, and I'm going to start.
Am I allowed to open it up?
You can, but don't read it yet. What I'm going to do is that. Not impressive yet.
That's impossible.
That's the best part when you think it's impossible.
Ooh. It's not even straight.
Don't breathe. Tammy, would you read the first paragraph?
The secret to creating magic is not found in a single idea, but in the connections we forge between the most unlikely of thoughts.
And the second paragraph?
Combine 1 part worldly curiosity, a dash of courage, a dose of empathy, endless parts imagination, until the impossible becomes reality.
No. He's going to stand with it.
And the last paragraph, please?
With every bold idea, we push the limits of what's possible. And when we find the balance between the practical and the imaginative, we create magic that leaves the world in wonder.
And there you have it. That is how disparate thinking brings things together to create a miracle.
Oh my God.
I hope you all enjoyed today. I want to thank you all for having me. And I want to thank the summit for inviting me to join you today. I had an immense amount of fun, and I hope that you guys did too, and I hope that I left you with something to think about. I also don't want to leave without giving credit to all these people who helped me devise and develop this piece of work to where it is today. And I'll open it up to any questions that you may have. Thank you. Thank you.
How did you do this?
Blue?
So tell me about your reaction to this topic and how we handled it and how you guys feel about this approach.
I find it very interesting because I'm not on the marketing side. I'm on the creating products, interfaces, and services that feel not unobtrusive, right? Whereas yours kind of has a kind of feel like it's obtrusive because it kind of like, no, if you have a garbage can that's really, really good, you should never really have to think about it. You just use it, it just works, and it never smells, and it just, However, you still want to, we started thinking much more about experiences that those products create, and not about the as the real goal, and not the product itself. So that should kind of disappear and just should right, and that the experience should kind of be one of those experiences, and so on. And I think with those experiences, we just take the obvious ones that we want to create. Typically we say, what's the obvious experience? Okay, now let's go from there, but at least we thought about the experiences. What you are suggesting, and I'm a big fan of all those ideation techniques where you generate tons of ideas to come up with an innovative solution. We tend, when I say we, I tend not to apply to the experiences, but go to the obvious one, because hey, it's the experience, I'm good already, right? So I think next time I'll push it much further and say, what actually is the appropriate experience? And should there be an element of surprise in there? Which typically is for us not the case, but maybe it would make sense. And I was thinking about your research. You're talking about play.
Yeah.
And you probably also went with the more or less obvious one. I can imagine, I don't know, I'm just making that one up. But I could imagine that in your situation, where you want to kind of make the kids or the adults think about climate change, a good dose of surprise in the experience may actually be very positive because it's more memorable.
Yeah.
you know, as a marketer, you know, as I mentioned, that's how I know Michael and I've been in marketing 25 years, pre-internet, post-internet. You know, to hear you talk to some degree is interesting because I think we've been in the internet age so long and the technology age so long that our understanding of what is unobtrusive and magic and whatever has changed dramatically very quickly. And so there is a lot of magic and unexpected things that we all start to take for granted. And it's interesting as a marketer pushing those things, you know, I want you, if the experience is the product, I want you to push that. If the experience is helping me sell a product, I you know, send off ads that land on an experience that help push, you know, it's just interesting, you know, how things have changed so much so quickly and how, you know, there is so much surprise in technology and that, you know, sort of now we take it for granted and we think it's expected. It's just interesting to you know, understand how our thinking about magic, the magic of technology has changed over time. It's just very interesting to hear that.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because in the creation of content around this topic, I've found that there are such a large number of references to where magic comes into play in marketing or technology or experience. There are many different ways to think about it. So does it mean that every experience needs to be shocking? No. But should every experience be meaningful and connect? Yes. So there are very subtle types of surprises that can be designed, which you don't have to call out as like, wow, but they can be observed and they can be humorous, they can be poignant, because when you capture an audience's attention and they're observing, for example, one bit I did not do today, which is a staple of my stage shows, is when my glasses suddenly appear on my face.
Yeah.
And I don't say anything about it. I just let people discover that they're there. And it starts usually over here and then it goes over there and the laughter goes all the way back. And I just keep going. It's a very subtle thing, but it commits people to observe what you're doing from then on and forward in a way that just coming out and doing anything otherwise might not. So I might start incorporating that.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was gonna say, like, I know plenty of people who wear glasses who, like, magically, like, the glasses magically disappear, like, not intentionally, right? And then they magically get discovered.
they're up here.
Yeah.
They're up there like that. Where am I?
Who put them there, right?
Your own magician.
Exactly.
Like Jay's doing.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
so you're right, and these, you know, the other observation I made recently was that so many times with anything that we're talking about, all of these different topics, references to magic are made all the time, out of hand. I don't think folks necessarily, I know they don't, regard the import of it, but, you know, so many salespeople who are presenting something, and this is where the magic happens. You see, really, what magic is that? Or that the outcome was magical. I mean, it's an overused colloquial term.
Yeah. Or they'll talk about a trick, right? And
The
they'll,
trick.
they'll
Here's the
use it
trick.
disparagingly, like, oh, there's some trick behind
There's some
it,
trick,
whatever. Here's
exactly.
the trick. Here's the.
And
here's
so,
the trick for me.
and that becomes something we were talking about before, which is that magic is not so much about deceiving people. It can be, but it's, if the magician's intent is to fool you, or to make you feel in a way that's like not good, by virtue of the fact that you've been fooled,
Right.
that to me isn't magic.
Right. Which is another aspect of technology, frankly.
Right.
There are lots of people that will trick you and will deceive you. Like we talk about this like dark patterns in user experience, where you're going through a sequence of a process or whatever, and like you're guided towards choosing a certain choice, right? Or you know, you're, like there's no such thing as a call center anymore, right? For some technology, it's like that's yeah. You can't unsubscribe from something easily,
Yeah, true.
right? Like all of
Oh,
these.
that you can't find where to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and you don't, and it's not overt, right? It doesn't, you know, it's not something that you would notice from the beginning, but it's one of those very subtle things.
True.
So,
And I think too that it's, you know, more times than not, it's a very subtle line when we're performing for an audience to make them feel as good about what they're seeing as we feel about doing it.
Yeah.
Not to make the magic or the humor at their expense. This trick that we did with Brenda was a perfect example of that. We were doing the trick for you. And I made that clear that this is for you. Misdirection is designed to fool you.
Yeah.
And it can be done to 1,000 people or one person. But in the spirit of what we're doing, it's about the experience that you had. It was fun, right? It was fun for me, it was fun for you, and it wasn't put in a context to say, watch how this guy can't see what's going on.
Right, right.
It was magical for him, and in some way, it was magical for you, because you were watching someone be amazed. So, it's the same in marketing. I mean, you can have marketing that's edgy and insulting,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of edginess.
Yep.
Versus edgy but really smart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you go, oh, yeah, that's an angle no one thought of.
You
So,
did, Roland, to answer some of your questions about marketing, I don't want to overtalk Michael at all, but my background is in performance marketing. I typically don't do the brand work. I typically sort of inherit it and then use that based on, you know, super hard number crunching. I've got a data science background as well. And so that's part of the problem with marketing. It's maybe a big idea was done sometime, but now it's grinding every last penny out of it to the point where a lot of organizations forget to reinvest in either that big idea or a new one to sustain it. So you're grinding, and you know, like I said, I've got a big enough, a strong enough, and long enough data science background that, you know, with different statistical tools and, you know, Python coding, whatever, and say, hey, you know, I can see where things are starting to, we need to reinvest in that thing that I don't do. So I'm not asking for more money. I'm saying you need to do something up here, or else the whole thing is gonna start gliding downward at some pace, and eventually, and then all of a sudden it's like, hello, and I've been in companies where it's just.
I was at Ad Week last week, and that was the conversation across the board, was this the long and short of it, balancing that performance.
Yeah, you know, so there's a lack of big idea thinking in marketing today, largely driven, you know, Google and Meta.
Yeah.
You know, the ad platforms allow you to crunch numbers, and I love that. I don't want to, like, I get a big thrill out of data science and number crunching and whatever, but it really does.
Right.
All of a sudden, the ads are all the same.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Whatever.
I mean, I'm disgusted by pretty much every ad I see that and I say, you know, I always kind of, the best I can do is accuse them that it's not for me, but I can't imagine who it is for.
Right.
They're just so bad
They're so
and
bad.
lame. And I was stunned that Aflac still does the same stuff they did 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago. I just saw it recently.
it's interesting that, you know, there are certain companies who will keep repeating the same ads over and over and over again. And the only reason they do it is because they work.
And persistence.
They work. And so regardless of how we may feel about it, they work, which is why they're buying that expensive media for that stupid ad. The quintessential annoying ad is the Cars for Kids ad.
Oh.
It's so annoying, and in and of itself
Intentionally.
is one of the reasons why it works.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a whole article about that in somewhere,
I
the
could,
Times or
I
something
could
last
sing
week.
it for you now, and I swear every time I heard it begin, I turned it off.
I turn
but
it
I
off.
still know it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I
You're
look at.
brainwashed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah,
But then there's also like TikTok, right, where it's like it's marketing, but you're not seeing ads. You're not seeing things that are overtly.
Ads don't look very much different from the rest. That's what it.
Oh, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
all the same. Yeah. It's very weird.
so you're getting a mix mash of content
Yeah.
and what could be regarded as an ad.
Right.
And here's to Jay's point, one of the things that I think happens not only in marketing and advertising, but in magic as well, is that the magician will pick up an amazing effect designed by someone else and eviscerate it. I mean, just kill it by not giving it enough time, or not coming up with your own angle for that, or what's your point of view in doing anything that you saw today, or spending enough time to make sure that it's doing justice to the people that created it. When we create a brand campaign, the brand people spend millions of dollars to create this marvelous, and then it gets handed down, and it gets watered down, and watered down, and watered down, because now you're relying on data and AI and all the things that we think are gonna, get us the results, and we forget about the whole experience of the message that we're trying to deliver.
Yeah.
I feel like that makes me think of I feel like so many CEOs and stuff like that, they value the quantitative research so
100%.
much more, and not that there isn't a lot to that, but I think that's one of the struggles in UX too, is that people like to do qualitative research and having to convince people that this is a value.
Right.
Because I think that's where the really good ideas come
The
from.
shocking community is to be hired a lot of times to be a number cruncher, but not be listened to. So here's where things are going. Here's where things are, and they are where I told you they would be, and they're getting worse.
Right.
Just keep trying, work harder. It doesn't
No, it's
work
a-
harder.
so
you need the big idea, and that's one of the reasons why when Michael told me this, I was like, oh my God, I'm your number one fan, and I am. His family is his number one fan, of course, but I'm his number 5 fan, number 6
Depends
fan.
on who you ask. But I think that the question that I have for the group like this or others is, I mean, it's one of those things where you hear a good discussion, you go, yeah, we're gonna go off and do that. And you go back to your office and it's the same.
No.
Because you're under the same pressures you were under before you came to them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's a lot of, we know how to do this in corporate America to the degree that is embarrassing. We know how to do this. I worked at a large agency, and one of our biggest clients, and one that I worked on for a long time, was General Motors. They deserve to fail. I want to see them fail. I want to see them fail, because I know that not only the advice that we as an agency gave them, but I know the advice that other agencies that we would, even aggressively pitch against, and I know the advice that they gave them, and General Motors never took any of it, and they deserve to fail. And it's so bad that their leadership is making millions of dollars every year, and it's because, and I've heard several of their CEOs say this fact: only someone from General Motors knows how to fix General Motors. And they've needed at least one bailout, in the past 10 years. It's like, what the hell? They don't know anything.
Yeah.
But that's a big problem too, and that's why I think the big idea thing is so cool. It hopefully can shake up somebody who's stuck.
well, I can tell you that on a smaller scale, the agency that I mentioned that I worked for a couple of years, this fellow Robert Rosenthal, his pitch won him so much business because the companies that we would present that to hadn't heard it before. They would sit there and go, wow, we've never had a discussion like this. So let's go. And so it was relatively easy to get those pilot programs going, and then to prove their worth, because this was a direct marketing agency, so we could measure everything.
Yeah.
And it made a huge amount of sense to me.
Michael, when was the last time you heard? It's been almost 10 years probably since I've been in and heard proactively mentioned by leadership a brainstorm session.
Well, and the thing is, people do not know how to brainstorm.
No, that's true, but it's been abandoned in my experience in the
really?
past 10 years.
No,
You don't even hear companies even trying to have them.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like we're not even gonna bother to try to think of something new.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank
I
you very
really
much.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much. If any of you are willing to talk to Jay for a few minutes about your reactions to this, we would love to get some video if you're game. for our own commentary and possibly for use on social media if you're game. And if so, then I have a document you can
I'm
fill
happy
out.
to, but I need a bit food first.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, yeah.
Oh, lunchtime.
Okay, we can do it later too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Souvenir.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Keep the logic.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
No, no.
Well, what I didn't count for was discussion.
Oh,
Which I need to-
yeah, I didn't even, I'm just talking about your presentation.
Yeah.
So with it, and that could have gone, 25 minutes.
So, I mean, originally, I designed it for 3 hours. Because the
Oh, yeah,
exercise-
I heard about this balancing thing.
Cause I don't understand how he did it.
Did you, like, he
I was
assembled
there,
it?
I was standing next to him as he was constructing this.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's a miracle.
And those are all individual parts?
They are.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I handled the toothbrush and didn't know where he was going with this, and I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. I can vouch for all of that.
This is a demonstration of how disparate thinking and disparate objects can come together to form a miraculous ending.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's been like that for 10 minutes and I don't understand how it still.
How is there-
That's magic. That's magic for
Magic.
you.
There
Right?
can only be one explanation.
Right, of course.
Mm.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
it's so cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it resonated.
Yeah.
I get to sit with you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I ask
Sure.
Thank
Can I have them too? You could
So
take
yeah,
them.
sure, really, to have this opportunity,
Okay.
to have picture with a celebrity.
Thank
Thank you. Too bad I was
Thank you.
presenting, had to miss your presentation.
Oh, well,
But I'll have to catch up the.
we have video.
Thank you
That's
so much.
Thank you.
I heard it's so amazing. Now I get to see it.
Yeah, because you were thinking about this as a workshop with like a client organization.
Yeah,
So the fact that, right, so you got through so much was awesome.
so the piece
Yeah.
with the box
Yeah.
was just a smidge of what I would do in a workshop.
Yeah.
My plan originally was to give people a bunch of objects like these.
Yeah.
And say, have at it.
Yeah.
And you saw what they did. They actually came up with some pretty cool
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah,
So you'd have, in a big group, if the room were filled, I would have gone group here, group there, group there, group there. And either
Mhm.
given them disparate
Yeah, yeah,
objects,
yeah,
or I
yeah,
would have
yeah.
given them an actual trick
yeah,
in separate pieces to
Yeah.
say, make a trick with that.
yeah,
Because there is a solution. And my intent originally was to say, you've just exercised your mind in a way that it typically doesn't think.
right.
And now when you go back to your office and you're
Right.
trying to ideate around something
Right.
else, you're gonna find a much
Awesome.
freer
Awesome.
association.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, I'd love to see this with a marketing group. That would be aw.
yeah. And the positioning for the marketing people is, look, we get it. We
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll just put these things out on a table or something.
Just throw these away.
Oh, yeah. But most of it worked. I was so nervous in the beginning.
Oh, this was. I don't even want. Don't talk to me about this. I don't. We're not talking about this. I'm just telling you, it's just so enjoyable. It was just.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I mean, because some of it I was focused too much on, like making sure I got the shot, but I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on. But this was, easily for me to see as I was kind of managing the camera. I was like, oh, that's fucking awesome.
I just wish there were more people here.
Yeah. So I wanna know nothing, I just enjoy, I don't try to figure it out at all. I just love enjoying the moment.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Do you want this or?
No.
Yeah, you do. Just a little memento.
Okay.
Okay, so we are right now at 1:46.